All right. Lesson 1 for Chapter 1 is characteristics of life. So your vocab slide, we have organisms, or things that have all the characteristics of life. A cell is the smallest unit of life. A unicellular organism is a living thing that is made up of only one cell. Multicellular organisms are living things that are made up of two or more cells. And homeostasis is an organism's ability to maintain steady internal conditions when outside conditions change. So the characteristics of life, there are 6 of them. All living things are organized, grow and develop, reproduce, respond to stimuli, maintain certain internal conditions, and use energy. If you have those 6 things, if you meet those 6 characteristics, you are an organism. So when we talk about the characteristics of life, we're talking about those 6 things. So we're going to go through those 6 things now. The first one being organization. A cell is every organism's smallest unit of life. So the smallest living thing are cells. And cells can be different size, big, small, in between, but that's the smallest unit of life there is. A unicellular organism, or unicellular organisms are made up of only one cell. We talked at the beginning of the year, we did that. The language of science worksheet, uni means one, like a unicycle or a unibrow, a person with one eyebrow. That means one. Multicellular organisms are made up of 2 or more cells. Multi means many. I think we've probably seen that before. So here you have all of the organisms, and then we split them into 2 different groups. We have unicellular organisms right here, and they're organisms that have only one cell. So this could be an amoeba, bacteria, prokaryote. And then on the other side, the other split is multicellular organisms, where we have organisms consisting of many cells, so plants and animals. So this, you don't need to copy this down, but you'll need, I'm sure there's going to be questions in your notes about this. Unicellular organisms are made up of one cell. The single cell in those organisms performs all the functions. So that cell does the eating, the reproducing, the removing of waste, the moving of the cell itself. The example again, amoebas, bacteria. Multicellular organisms are made up of more than one cell. So we have specialized cells perform different life functions. So we have different parts of us that move, different parts of us that eat, different parts of us that feel, like our nerve cells is the example there. And our example would be humans. So it's important to remember that multicellular organisms have specialized cells. So growth and development is our next one. Changes that occur in an organism during its lifetime are called developments. Developments happens as cells become specialized into different cells. So development can be very, very dramatic, going from a tadpole to a frog, right? That's a big change in what the frog actually looks like. It doesn't have to be as dramatic. When you are just a few cells big, so when you're growing inside your mother's womb, you have just certain types of cells, and those become more developed. So they become more specialized to create different types of tissue, so lung tissue, heart tissue, whatever it might be. Growth, on the other hand, is just growing in size or increasing biomass. When we talk about biomass, we're just talking about living matter. So the cell itself can grow, or you can just reproduce the same cell, but you're not making it any more specialized when you're just going through growth. Reproduction. Reproduction is a process by which one organism makes one or more new organisms. Some unicellular organisms can reproduce by dividing to produce 2 new organisms. Other organisms must mate to reproduce. So unicellular organisms that reproduce, that's called asexual reproduction. A is the prefix for not, sexual meaning they have to actually carry out that act. So not having to have sex means that they just split. On the other hand, we have organisms that must mate, that's called sexual reproduction, so they actually need another mate to reproduce. Alright, so here are just 2 examples of what asexual reproduction would look like when we talk about just splitting into 2. Budding in yeast, where we have the nucleus, and we just split the part of the nucleus off, and it becomes an entirely different cell. but it's a clone. It's actually a clone of the mother cell, and this right here would be the daughter cell to this mother cell. And then binary fission in an amoeba, this is about the same idea. You're just splitting this directly in two. Response to stimuli. All living things respond to changes in the environment. These changes are called stimuli. Stimulus is the singular version of stimuli. Stimuli is plural. So there are two types of stimuli. Internal stimuli are changes that happen within the organism, and external stimuli are changes that happen outside the organism. So external ones are easy to think of. If the temperature changes, that's an external stimuli. If there's more light, that's an external stimuli. Internal changes could be a little more difficult to think of. They could be your pH in your blood being different, so your body has to adjust to that. Or you not having enough water, your body has to adjust to that. Stuff like that would be internal, things that are coming from inside. So internal means inside, external, like exit, means outside of the organism itself. So homeostasis is our next one. Homeostasis is an organism's ability to maintain steady internal conditions when outside conditions change. So the word homeostasis can be broken up into parts. Homo means like, stasis means still, so we want it to still be alike. You always want your internal conditions to be the same, because maintaining homeostasis ensures that cells and organisms can function normally and remain healthy. You have a very, very limited range where your cells are actually going to be able to perform the jobs that they need to perform. If you get too hot, they can't perform their jobs well, and then you're going to be very sick. If they get too cold, if there's too much water, if there's not enough water, there's a lot of things that our bodies actually have to change to carry out this homeostasis. The use of energy. Cells continuously use energy for many reasons, including making new cells, transporting substances, getting rid of waste. There's a lot of different things. All energy in life comes from the sun. Its energy can be passed from one organism to another. Nothing else makes energy in the terms that the sun does. All the energy on Earth is coming from the sun. So here we have a food web, and we're going to talk about these later. But you'll notice that the sun's energy is always the base to our food web. We go sun's energy to plant, and we have our primary consumers, and then from there we have all the different consumers. But the biggest thing that I want you to understand is that the sun's energy is where it all starts.